Welcome to episode 199 of Saturday Football Uncensored, brought to you by Saturday Down South. On today's episode, we recap week 5. You can find the show on the website, SaturdayDownSouth.com, and Apple and Spotify. Don't forget to join us for the live recording of the show, just like you're doing tonight, every Sunday at 8 Eastern Time on the Saturday Down South YouTube page. Go share with your friends, please. We're looking to expand the pod. Find clips from the show on Twitter at SatDownSouth and at SatFBUncensored. On Instagram and TikTok at Saturday Down South. And you can find us on our YouTube page, of course, at Saturday Down South. And now, Chris, here's the show. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Saturday Football Uncensored, brought to you by Saturday Down South and Texas Pete. I'm your host, Tyler Huck. And with me, as always, Chris Marler. Chris, what a weekend.
That was fun.
I got into my first battle on Twitter.
You did. Guess who it was with?
It was with Georgia fans.
My favorite text maybe I've ever received from you was you saying, and I quote, now I get it, why you were constantly fighting with Georgia fans. Can you like real quick, can you imagine the meltdown that would have ensued? What's up, Bo Blackwell? Welcome in, dude. Krista's here. And Krista was very mad at me yesterday.
Freedom Van for a first timer as well in the live chat.
Oh, love it, Freedom Van.
Yeah, weird name, but let's do this.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Can you imagine the meltdown that would have ensued if they lost that game? We're gonna get into that. It's probably where we should start, really, to be honest. I feel so much more vindicated in two of the takes that I had last week, which is one that USC is nowhere near a top 5 team at all. And two, I feel fine with the fact that I had Georgia out of our top 5 last week.
Yeah, I mean, had you said that on Twitter, things might have gone apoplectic.
Yeah,
that's what I did.
Should we start there?
Why don't we start there? We got a heavy Georgia contingent typically, although we didn't go live on Facebook, so the viewership is a little down for the live show, but that's okay.
Yeah. It's hooked up to yours or mine? Because I haven't been on my Facebook in forever.
It was disconnected from the YouTube page for Saturday Down South. I reconnected it, but then I think I should have gone back, but I just tried it. We're jumping up in listeners, so here we go.
All right, sounds good.
The Georgia game. Where do we start? Another slow start for Georgia.
Yeah.
That's kind of been a theme.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying... What were your thoughts? Because the game certainly didn't go the way we thought it would.
So had a ton of thoughts. And I tell you what, we're in October now, right? And this is going to shock you. Maybe it's the meds. Maybe it's this newfound happiness. But I'm going to dub October as optimistic October because I don't have that many negative things to say. I don't have that many negative things to say about Krista's LSU team and that loss. The defense was terrible, but we have a Mizzou fan, Travis Stewart, in here. There's a lot of positives to say there. I don't think that the sky is falling even from what happened in Auburn yesterday. And there's so many ways to take this on and look at it because here's the thing. You can look at Georgia and say, all right, Auburn ran the ball down your throat because Auburn lined up. And what I said on Twitter was, you lined up into what is the best defense in the country. And what I meant by that is under Kirby Smart, right? This is consistently one of the best teams, if not the best defense in the country every year that he's there. And you ran into the teeth of that defense and chose that to, like, if you're Auburn, you chose violence. Like that was what you decided to do. And how are you going to win the football game? Because they have not been able to throw the ball. Coming into the game, I threw out that stat last week and it went everywhere. 5 straight games against Power 5 competition where they hadn't had 100 yards passing. They go into this game, they still don't do that. So what do? They line up. They have 43 rush attempts. It is tied for the most rush attempts against Georgia in the last 5 years. And they have the most rushing yards since the 2018 LSU game that Georgia lost by 20 points. I thought that was concerning to some degree for Georgia because Auburn was very one-dimensional, right? The slow start, sure. But you know what they did yesterday that I think we've been waiting to see all season? They had some traits of what championship and elite teams do. And that is you get up off the mat, You make plays when it counts. You get your playmakers the ball when you need to, and you
Playmaker.
make plays when you need to. Yeah, playmaker, and you make plays when you need to. Well, I mean, and I'm going to get into that in a second. I want to hear your thoughts first, and then I'm going to get into more of the praise for both sides.
Yeah, I mean, I was impressed with Auburn's defense. They were pretty physical bunch. I mean, you expect them to be in that game. Jalen Simpson looked really good at safety. To me, he
Yeah,
stuck out. And I thought Auburn's game plan was good, man. They ran a lot of just motion, and they were just trying to find ways to scheme people open because they don't have the players yet.
right.
And I thought they did an admirable job of that. I think you look at Georgia, and man, I absolutely got killed for this on Twitter, but I stand by it. Like, they're not the number 1 team in the nation to me. I don't care what
No.
if they won back-to-back championships, like, that's obviously great, but it has no
Mhm,
bearing on this season, and when I watch them versus a Texas or a Washington, I think that those teams should be higher, and I don't see the I think those I just don't think Georgia's the best team. I think they're still probably gonna make the playoff because
mhm.
they're
They
still a
don't play
really
anybody.
good team. Um, but I mean, Carson Beck looked really good to me, I thought. I don't understand why he's getting
What is
brought
that
up,
about?
man.
So let's get into this real quick. Here's more of the positives, and this is what I was kind of shocked with. Now, James O'Quinn brings up something that I was just about to bring up, and that is the fact that this is almost the exact same weekend that this happened last year against Mizzou. A year ago today is when they had that scare in Como. Now, and here's the other thing too. I've been hearing this all weekend. I've been saying it all weekend. The best part about this loss is that, like, or I'm sorry, this win is that it's a win. You get to make all these adjustments coming off a win, not a loss, right? So I think that, like, yeah, you can look at it and say, I don't think they're the number 1 team in the country right now. That's fine because they've been pretty much a work in progress towards the end of the season where they start to peak, which is where you want to peak. Each of the past 2 seasons where they won a national championship, right? Like, this has not been a
Mhm,
finished product from the start. Last year they got up to a great start and they kind of get into a little bit of lull, and then by the end of the season you're playing your best football. I mean, I expect that to happen like this season with this team because that's what Kirby continues to do. The other thing I'll say, if it's a concerning part, is you did get a bunch of your starters back that you've been without, and you still looked like that. I thought
mhm.
Lad McConkey was huge, especially on third down. I thought Carson Beck was really, really good. I know he had the interception early, but he kept them in that game. Everyone's getting the praise to Brock Bowers, but he made so many plays where he like didn't hold on to the football for too long, waited to make the right read, was making multiple reads, not just like for the snap I'm going here, right? It's like that's and anybody can make that assumption or that like very what's I mean, I'll say low hanging fruit assessment that, oh, he's just going to go to Bowers because he was
Mhm.
making his reads. And there's a lot of times when Bowers was covered, especially in the first half, where he went to McConkey on third down. The defense played well when it had to and bowed their neck when they had to. But here's the thing that was interesting to me for Georgia. You're tied in the fourth quarter. Georgia had 13 total plays in the fourth quarter. Do you know how many plays they ran the football in the fourth quarter with 13 total plays?
None.
Why do you do this? You're such a dick. Um, Out of the 13 plays in the fourth quarter, which we look at a Kirby Smart and Georgia team, traditionally they like to lean on you and run the football. 3 rushes for -2 total yards.
Yeah.
They threw the ball 10 times. Carson Beck was 8 of 10 for 100 and I think 138 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions. He's 80%. He was 80% yesterday in the fourth quarter and 80% on third downs. If that's not playing big time football, I don't know what is. Now, moving away from Georgia for a second, let's give like a tip of the cap to Auburn because I tell you what, man, you were knocking on the door of having a program changing win, the first one under Hugh Freeze. The atmosphere was electric, electric the entire game, and that's one thing that I've always said about Auburn fans, and I've done it like kind of jokingly and saying like they're too stupid to insult. And what I mean by that is like a positive, like they are for real. Like
What?
it's that's a thing from The Hangover. It's like you are too stupid to insult. And he's like, thank you. There's nothing you can say to Auburn fans where they will not show up, be loud, be proud, be loyal, all of those things, no matter what.
That's
Brought
true.
all last year, every single time. And I thought it was awesome to see how in that game that the fans were. I didn't like a few of the in-game decisions from Hugh Freeze, on some of the third and fourth and shorts. Didn't think those were necessarily great. Thought he also probably should have kicked a field goal early on. Hindsight's 2020 because you have a bad snap. But I mean, I thought Auburn played really, really well. They just ran into, I'll say, a buzzsaw, but also the team that's won back-to-back natties.
Did you ever feel in the game that Georgia was going to lose?
Yeah.
You did?
I was very excited.
See, I never really felt like they were going to lose. I figured eventually stuff would start to turn their way. Now, I was starting to feel a little hairy there for a minute. I was like, no, that'd be a crazy win for Hugh Freeze, considering he basically took the opening week press conference to just say like how great Georgia is and they've got such great buy-in. Basically, talking to his people,
Yeah.
like, see if we just buy in like they do, administration, fans on down, boosters, everybody. This is what you're going to see on Saturday is what
Right.
we could be. And then they actually almost beat them outright. So,
With that offense.
yeah, there's not many good players on that offense, specifically at quarterback.
I will tell you the one thing that
Peyton Thorne's got good legs though. Not like looking, but like he's fast.
That's okay. I will tell you that the one thing that I was least impressed by with Auburn, and that is the what's the best way to put this? I'm having trouble with my words today, as always. The lack of creativity and surprise they had from the quarterback position, because they kept bringing in Robbie Ashford and then they bring in Peyton Thorne and they kept interchanging them. And there was only one time that I can remember. I think it was in the third quarter when they were probably, I think, on Georgia's like 30 or something like that. They just got in a first down. They brought in Robbie Ashford. It was the one time in the game that they ran a play that I didn't see coming, right? Like every other, it felt like very simple. They were going to throw the ball here and like they were primarily going to run the ball, especially with Robbie Ashford. It seemed very, very obvious a lot. And they threw like a swing pass for like, it was like, 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage or something like that. That was about it. So other than that, I mean, like, yeah, do you let one slip away if you're Auburn? But you have to be pretty excited for the rest of the season because, and I'll say this for both schedules, you look at Auburn's schedule, you got Ole Miss on that schedule, which maybe it's winnable, maybe not, because I don't think they're going to keep up with an offense. But Mississippi State at home, or I think Arkansas at home, like you still got 4 games on that schedule that are winnable. If even as a Bama guy, if you don't think that Auburn team or performance from yesterday could beat Alabama, then you're crazy. Because I think that all the things were in place. They just ran into one of the best teams in the country.
Yeah, and they were getting killed in the middle of the field with Bowers, which is not something I think Milroe can. That's not part of his strongest points of his game.
What isn't?
Intermediate to short passes.
Oh, well, you sound like a bitch. So whatever.
Okay. Another part of this game, we were in the third quarter, and I was just, figured I'd fire out a tweet. Thought it'd be harmless, maybe
How'd
get a
that go?
retweet or two. I said Georgia drops in the polls after this performance, like Florida State did after being a better Clemson team on the road, right? And as of now, it has 172,000 views.
How many followers do you have?
I have like 900.
Well, first off, go follow Tyler on Twitter if you're watching this right now, right away. You got to get those followers up.
Yeah, and I'm tracking it right now, and I'll shout you out if you follow me here now.
Right,
58 reposts, 41 quote tweets, 922 likes, and then 5 bookmarks. People are going to want to revisit this later. My guess is when Florida State loses.
The bookmark thing weirds me out so much, mainly because I'll fucking say it. The person I'm dating posted a picture, and there were multiple bookmarks, and I was like, these fucking creeps. The bookmark, there's no good that comes out of the bookmark. There's no good that comes out of it all because it's only for people that want to go. It's never for like, hey, what was that stat? It's like hairy dog eating off the floor for 2069 said that Florida was going to lose by 20 and they only lost by 15. I'm going to go rub it in his fucking face. You're like, okay, sick. So weird. I had somebody text me today asking if I had a bookmark for the person saying that no opposing quarterback had ever won his first ever start in Jordan-Hare. That made the rounds on Twitter. You know where it came from?
I don't.
Like a random person in my comments that had like 200 followers just said it.
Mm,
Just said it.
yeah.
And Georgia fans just took it as like literal. So
The responses I got were honestly half Georgia fans saying like, "Yeah, you know what? Like, I hope we drop because these guys need to wake up." And
yeah.
then the other half was like, "How dare you come at the Kings like that?"
Yeah, there
And
were some people that were real upset about that.
I mean, there were some real irrational tweets. I won't go through them all because, quite frankly, they just don't make a lot of sense. But I did enjoy one today. I got it just out of the blue, and I checked his profile. He was an Ole Miss fan, and he said I should be replaced on the podcast.
What? Who said that? You found my burner?
Yeah. Well, he also said you should be too as well.
Well, what did I do?
I don't know.
Does
He
he
started
understand how
out. Yeah, I
podcasts work?
went into his. I was like, "What is he referencing?" And he said basically right before the tweet where he tagged me and said I should be replaced. He said something about like you need to, and he tagged you like clean your bio up or something like that,
Me?
or change your bio. And then he followed that up with a tweet that said, "You know what? They should probably just replace him on the Saturday Down South podcast, which isn't even our podcast." And he goes, and at the same time, you should probably get Tyler Huck out of there too. Just, but it was an Ole Miss fan. I don't know. Was he mad that we picked LSU? Like, I
I
just
love the
crazy.
fact that he still wants the podcast to be around just with
Yeah,
no
just neither
host.
one of us is.
Like
He
that's a
enjoyed
level
it.
of petty that I love. Like somebody coming in and being like, "Book it, dude. I'll sit here and listen to dead air if it means I don't have to listen to those two."
I'll listen to what is it, 85% of the podcast.
Yeah. There was one person that did say we should do this on the weekends. I feel like is just go to like our the most ridiculous. We kind of do it with the call-ins, but there was like somebody that called or somebody that texted or tweeted something about how um what was it? It was something along the lines of oh, I don't know who Chris Marler is, but every time I see his content, he's just clutching his pearls over over fandom that he doesn't like in the stadium. Like I'm being the moral compass for how fans should act
Mm.
in a stadium. And I'm like, brother, I have yelled in front of a 10-year-old's face wearing a Cam Newton jersey before I threw up in the bushes at a firehouse sub before. So don't even start. Anyway, do we have any
Before we
calls from
move
this
on,
game?
shout out to Freedom Van who followed me on Twitter. Um,
Freedom Bam.
Christian
Freedom Bam.
Sullivan and Billiam Dixon. So
That's,
3 followers from that. Appreciate it, guys. So yeah, so Georgia, look, so last question on Georgia before we move on. Do you trust them in some of the bigger games on their schedule, or
what
are
big
you a
game?
little bit more worried about
What big
them?
games?
The big ones that they have.
Here's the thing about Georgia is they struggled. How do you want to look at it? They struggled against, let's say it was the road, because it wasn't like it was a crazy offense. It wasn't like it was a super well coached team. It like they struggled on the road, right? So if that's where we want to go with this, you have 4 more games on the road. 3 of them are true road games. You want to know what the 3 are? Vanderbilt, Georgia Tech, who lost to Bowling Green yesterday,
Yeah, that was a tough
and
one.
then
I had a
Tennessee and
minus
Knoxville.
22.5.
Yeah, that is also tough. So like, yeah, I mean, like I think they're gonna be fine. And here's the thing with Georgia's offense or Georgia's like schedule too. Maybe I'm overlooking Kentucky because Kentucky's undefeated. Kentucky's played the 124th ranked schedule in the country. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
like they had a great win, but I maybe I'm stupid because of what I just watched with Auburn, but I don't think that 2 teams are going to line up in a row and run it down Auburn's throat. I mean, run it down Georgia's throat. Anyway, we've talked enough about this game. We got to get to another one. What do we
We
got?
did get a voicemail
Oh God,
from this game. Hold please.
is it good?
Oh, I haven't listened to any of these, so they could be horrific for all I know.
Like the one thing you're supposed to do.
I know. Is
I
this
think I was
working?
right about you on Twitter.
Chris, while I'm waiting for my computer to work, Green Soldier has a question in here. How do they call into the voicemail?
Ooh, very good question. That I will answer for you. So basically, we have a game day hotline. We talk about it every week. It's a lot of fun. We love it. Let me look it up real quick. The hotline number is 770-674-8233, 770-674-8233. And you can call in. You don't have to be mad. You can be happy. You can be gloating. You can be mad. You can just be drunk and want to talk about your feelings. I do it all the time. A lot of fun. So yeah, make sure you guys call in. I'm probably gonna have to call in this weekend when Bama loses A&M.
Hopefully that doesn't happen for you.
Yeah.
Um, like my screens can totally locked up, but clearly it's still working on here. So can you switch it to the next game in the software?
Yeah. So you can't listen to the thing?
No, maybe if once I get this working, we'll listen to the voicemails at the end.
Year 3, technology still escapes us. Where do we want to go next? Let's see
Yeah.
here. Let's go.
How about Florida, Kentucky?
Let's go to Florida, Kentucky. So this was a surprise to me. I
Yeah.
think watching it play out, it was surprising to everyone, right? I think that everyone was probably surprised at the level of which Kentucky was able to dominate Florida. Early on, I remember texting you and I was like, I didn't think it was as bad as it looked. Like, you had a weird call on when you got to stop down 10-0. You had a weird call on like leaping over the up man in a punt. So instead of getting good field position, it's an automatic first down. The very next play is a 75-yard touchdown.
Leaping is a strange penalty.
Huh?
Leaping. So such
It's
a weird penalty to get. You're leaping. 15 yards leaping.
It's for the safety of it.
Yeah,
Thanks,
no.
Brandon.
It's funny to get flagged for leaping.
Well, and it's funny
skipping.
because
Like,
it's
don't
such a
skip down the field.
typical. Yeah, no, for 1,000%. But it's like also just a typical kind of problem that's plagued, I feel like, Billy Napier so far in this Florida team, because it's like, can't get out of your own way. They score on the next play. Then you throw a pick that's returned inside your 15, and then the game's over. Like, then the game's just over. So,
Dude, 329 rushing yards is the story, though.
dude, Ray Davis, 280 yards rushing. I mean, and I thought what was interesting was that you can talk about, before we get in the Ray Davis thing, hats off to Mark Stoops, because this is the first time since 1951 that Kentucky has beaten Florida for 3 years in a row. Okay, first time in 72 years. The last coach to do it was Bear Bryant. That's how long ago it's been. Also, side note, that team in 51 went 11-1 and won the SEC. So who knows? But Mark Stoops had a comment after the game, and he said what was interesting was how excited everyone was during the game, but the moment the game ended, it was almost like it got quiet because it was on to the next one. It was business as usual. It's almost like they expect to do it. And I don't know if he's just throwing a shot at Florida or if he means that, but it's a good look either way, I think, for Kentucky.
Yeah, man. And Willie Gray puts up a interesting comment in the chat, and I was actually looking at this last night. It says Napier can't win outside the swamp. Have you seen the list of his last few road games?
He hasn't won an SEC East road game since Florida hasn't won an SEC East road game since the COVID year.
That's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
Considering some of the games that you've had in that time. Vandy, Missouri, although Missouri is going to be a tougher game this year, but I mean, South Carolina is like, if you're Florida, you should expect to beat South Carolina on a regular basis.
Did they lost by like 23 to that South Carolina team, I think. I mean, yeah, it's bad.
It's bad. Especially like, and another argument that stemmed from the whole Georgia debacle on Twitter was this discussion about spreads and how they can, like, Florida was a 1 point. Were they a favorite by the end of this? By the closing number?
I think they were a 1 point underdog.
Either way, it was supposed to be a close game, and they got hammered. So would you say that maybe they under-delivered on the expectations for generally the smartest people that know the sport? They underperformed what was expected of them in that game?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually, somebody on Twitter told me that lines are only set so people will bet on the other side and Vegas can make money. So it's not really relevant to what the game is supposed to play out like.
He's not entirely wrong, but I don't know how I feel about you being the
aspect of that that's right.
Yeah.
But that's not like where the line is derived from.
No, but like I don't know how I feel about you being the bitter Twitter person now. And like
I'm just saying, if you're a 1 point underdog and you lose, what was the final score? It wasn't even as close as the final score was.
Like
33 to 14.
14,
I would
yeah.
say that you probably didn't do as well as most people thought you should.
Yeah, that's
Um,
fair. Um, but also a lot of
and that's
credit
not a
here to
good that's not
Kentucky.
good. Like, if you're Florida, it's okay to lose this year because I think most people your expected win total was 5.5, I think. But I
Mhm.
mean, you can't just totally botch games like that. Like, to get run over 300 plus yards almost by one man alone, have the same penalties that you saw in the Utah game. I mean, at one point they had 13 guys on the field on defense and they still let up a touchdown.
That was hilarious. But also, the bigger concern for me for Florida is, and again, like I don't want to do what we already did going into this game, which is overlook Kentucky and say that, like, because I just assumed they were going to win. I just assumed Florida was going to win. And I don't know why I was so hell bent on that. And Kentucky was very clearly the better team. This was not a fluke. This was not like some, you know, crazy things happened. They had a bunch of like turnovers. Like they got outplayed. Like there were turnovers, but they got outplayed. And I think that like, yeah, I'm looking at it right now. They had like Kentucky almost had 10 tackles for loss. The offensive line for Kentucky didn't give up a single sack. Like, I mean, like, think about how the offensive line and defensive line for Florida looked a couple of weeks ago, just 2 weeks ago against Tennessee. I think that's the concern for me is that not only was it over, but it was over early. And it wasn't because of fluky stuff. It was like you got dominated. You just got dominated. So,
I just realized that
um,
it still shows Auburn, Georgia on the
no, it doesn't.
it doesn't? Okay, then my
Or back
computer
of
is
what is going on with your computer?
I don't know, only it's weird. The chat and the video is working, nothing
Mhm.
else.
Okay.
I'm
So we
gonna
can't
exit
play.
out. You talk, and I'm gonna reboot this, my browser.
Okay. I'm gonna change it to this. Oh, just me. Hey guys, Chris here. We finally got our wish, and Tyler's gone.
Still
I'm
here.
kidding. Oh, you're still here? Shit. Okay. Where should we go? Why don't we go? I really want to get in that LSU Ole Miss game, but I'm gonna wait until Tyler gets back. So I'm gonna get into Bama, Mississippi State until he's back because you guys know who I am, and I stayed up late watching it. Okay, first off, whoever just decided to schedule this game at 9 p.m., I hate you. You're dead to me. That was awful. Positives and negatives. The takeaways I had here. Still very odd to see this Alabama team from a box score offensive standpoint. I'm very confused. They win 40-17, seemingly handedly. They did some things well. I don't want to say they executed well in every phase of the game because you had a muff punt. They hit 4 straight field goals. Now, I think going into this week, Will Reichert has hit his last 23 field goals, including his last 10 from 40-plus yards. Thought that was really important. The defense looked really good at times. And the most important part of the defense looking good was winning the turnovers, for one. They have just owned Will Rogers the 4 years he started against them. He's ended his career in 4 games against Bama with 8 total interceptions. But Jihad Campbell at the linebacker position, filling in for Deontay Lawson. He came in last week for an injured Deontay Lawson, was second on the team in tackles with 7, and he was one behind Caleb Downs, the phenomenal freshman 5-star safety. Now, you talk about this week, they both were 1 and 2 again in tackles. At the end of the game, but they had 14 and 13 respectively. So Jihad Campbell coming in as basically filling in for an injured player and playing that well, incredible. Yeah, James O'Quinn says everybody running off Bama. I'm angry with you. Now, here's the thing. What I said earlier, though, is what still confuses me, and that's about the offense. The offense, like all of those points weren't from the offense, right? You had 12 points coming from field goals. You had 7 come from, a defensive pick 6 from an edge rusher. So you had 3 total touchdowns. 2 of them were rushing from Jalen Milroe. I think only one of them was a design run. And then you had the run game got going. And I think the good news, if you're Bama, is you're able to kind of go into this game and establish what you've been wanting to do all year, which is run the football effectively, go in with your offensive line. You talked about it with the joyless murder ball and angry bully ball and all that kind of crap. They go in. They only throw 13 total passes this entire game. Milroe was, I think, 10 of 12 at the end of the game, and they ran the ball, I think, over 40 times. That I like to see. I thought that part was great. You averaged almost 5 yards a carry, and they looked really good, especially once they finally got Milroe involved in the run game. I thought all of that was a positive. The other parts that I think were kind of negative, if you look at it, the slow start wasn't my favorite. Tyler's back, thank God. Slow start wasn't my favorite. There's some other things you can shore up. Pre-snap penalties. You had a couple of 3rd and shorts where you still were in shotgun and you got stopped short. I didn't like that at all. But overall, and you missed a couple of assignments and gaps and stuff like that your defensive backs and safeties are supposed to fill in the run game for Mississippi State. They had a couple of like long, effective touchdown drives. But overall, you gave up less than 300 yards of offense, and you did it against a team that put up over 500 yards a week ago against South Carolina and almost 500 yards passing alone. A lot of positives to take away from it. I think it's a good warm-up for this week, but there's a lot of concerns still if you're going into Texas A&M because you can't have a slow start against Texas A&M. Texas A&M, fun fact, I'm going to say this stat all week, A&M is the only team in the SEC, I believe it even might be the country, that has scored on their first 2 possessions of every single game so far this season, 5 straight games. So that is something that's concerning. Tyler's back. I'm out of breath. Take it away.
Yeah, man, I liked what I saw from Bama's offense, involving Niblack. That dude's good, man.
He also that was a
They
touchdown, by
ran
the
the
way.
QB. Yeah, you're right.
Perfect.
Okay. Nah, man, it was actually what I expected out of Bama. I think my score prediction was pretty close. It was a dominating effort. They covered the spread. I mean, I think they're starting to figure out what they can be on offense now.
Yeah.
And it just a couple guys need to step up at receiver, which it seems like is happening. So I think it's a team that I expect to continue to get better. This is a really good test for I think where Bama's at now as compared to a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Um, and this game is in College Station.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah. Now, while we're here and we're talking about Bama, and I am still riding this high since they won, can we talk for a brief moment about your boy sitting firmly on a Peter? For those of you that are just joining us for the first time, we are sponsored by Texas Pete. They are our primary sponsor. We also talk a lot of gambling on here. If you've ever heard gambling, obviously on a heater. Last year, I somehow accidentally coined the phrase on a Peter. So it's nothing sexual. But I tell you what, it makes me feel a little bit sexual because I am on fucking fire right now. I was 11.
Yeah, I would love to focus all the attention on your picks and not mine.
Yeah, Tyler had a tough day.
Yeah.
I made a graphic and everything. First time I make a graphic for Tyler.
Yeah,
like
just a horrible card.
Yeah,
That's fine.
Did you go 1-8-1?
I think we sneaked in a Missouri win there, -13.
That was the only one.
No, maybe.
Ugh. Anyway, I went 12-3 on my picks. So if you are still trying to figure out how to make some extra money in this economy, gambling is the way to go. Go check out SaturdayDownSouth.com. I mean, like I said, like all jokes aside, I'm not encouraging anyone to gamble, and make sure if you do it responsibly. There's tons of links on the site. If you're in Kentucky, they just opened and legalized it this week. Tons of giveaways, tons of promos. Just check out SaturdayDownSouth.com and they'll have them all and all that. But like back to me. 12-3 on the week. I went 11-4 last week. We're 23-7 in the last 2 weeks. Again, elite is 56%. The last 2 weeks, I'm at a 76.7 clip.
Let's keep it going, baby.
Yeah. Anyway.
I think we got to give Missouri their due here.
Okay. We'll keep it brief and let's go to Ole Miss and LSU.
Look, Brady Cook, like I think at the beginning of the year in the first week, I was like, yeah, Brady Cook sucks. Like this team, dude, 395 yards, 4 touchdowns. Luther Burden, again, probably the best receiver in the country. He's not even draft eligible. Look, it's Vandy, so I'm not going to get crazy, but they were only 13.5 point favorites, and they won 38-21. And I just think that game against LSU at home is going to be lit in Como, as they say.
A couple of things I want to talk about. Primarily, did you see that Vanderbilt, not only is that stadium under construction, I mean, it is fucking under construction, quite literally. There were people working in the end zone during the game. There was at one point like Mizzou scored a touchdown or Vandy scored a touchdown, and there's just a fat construction worker, probably just a fucking mouthful of Monster Energy drink and Zen, with his back to the game, just getting to work, just like whatever. It's a Saturday. Luther Burden, I love what you said. First off, well, let me give props to Luther Burden. Leads the country in receiving yards. Leads the entire country. 4 straight 100 yards, 100-yard games. Been phenomenal in that offense, and the other receivers have been really good too, right? Like he's not a catching all 395 yards worth of those passes. Brady Cook, man, he's arguably been the best quarterback in the league throughout the season, because it's not even just from like listen, I'm gonna make
no turnovers.
There's no turnovers. Like there's
75% completion
on the year.
Yeah, ridiculous.
I remember saying in the beginning of the year, I was talking to some Mizzou fans and people that are like close to the program, whatever, and there was this feeling, and we brought it up on the show. There was this feeling that like, okay, well, do we start Brady Cook because he's been such, I don't say a liability, but like not a liability, right? So like, do we start Brady Cook and possibly gained 1 to 2 more wins on the season if in like from starting him versus starting Sam Horn, who's probably got the higher ceiling, was 98 off the mound, like in spring playing baseball, has a cannon for an arm, 4-star recruit. And that was a legitimate question people were asking. And now Brady Cook has come out and set the world on fire. And when I come out with my quarterback rankings we have to do every week, unofficial quarterback rankings, unofficial to be very clear. Definitely not official. They do not trust me with that at STS, to be very, very clear. And I cannot stress that enough.
I'm glad you cleared it up.
Yeah, of course. And I'm going to do it every single time I bring it up too. Because fuck them, that's why. Anyway, so it is, he will be number 2 this week behind Jaden Daniels, because Jaden Daniels has been phenomenal. But my God, he's been incredible. He's been incredible. Huge win, 5-0, ranked going into LSU. Now, who would have thought that going into this game that Mizzou would be ranked higher than LSU?
Not me. Let's get into that game. Because
hold on. Ole Miss just scored again.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even know they were still playing. I'm not surprised. Dude, that was kind of a shit show of a game, honestly.
It was awesome.
What's going on there? Oh, it was fun. 55-49, Ole Miss takes down LSU. Dude, 706 yards of offense to 637. We previewed before the game, like what struggling unit will step up more in terms of Ole Miss's offense.
Brought to you by Blue Chew.
Yeah. That's a good one. Or LSU's defense, and I think we got our answer there. My God.
It's so bad. Krista, I want to be very clear because we're doing the live show, and I know we got a lot of LSU fans. T-Claw, which I don't know if he called in or not, but, Mickey Sheremy, Nick Hallaby, all those guys. Love LSU. Love Baton Rouge. Krista, love you to death. We're going to be honest here. They're not an elite football team.
Defensive team. Their offense is really good.
Yes. I will say,
so that makes you not an elite, just like USC.
Well, but here's the thing. And here's again, optimistic October. LSU is out of the national championship race. And this is the one thing I kept saying in the offseason, like, you got to stack seasons. Like, you've got to prove it to me. Like, not saying like to me personally, but that's one of the reasons I wasn't so high on them. And I talked to guys like Matt Moscona and like Hester and all those guys that are close to the program. And I wasn't sold on it because of the fact it's like we haven't seen them stack those seasons multiple years in a row. And I'm not even saying in the SEC, but I'm definitely saying in a national standpoint, that is not something they've been able to do. And like them being just considered a national title contender. And I kept saying there's concerns there. And I think that a lot of that offseason hype was built off of year one under Brian Kelly. You beat Bama and you got to the SEC championship game. And I think all that's kind of come to fruition because you know what I kept hearing about? They put up 30 points and 500 yards on Georgia's defense last year. You know what I didn't hear about that? You gave up 50.
Yeah.
And you go into this game and like what happens? You gave up a ton of points last year to a bad A&M team. The secondary has been so bad. So bad. And for them to go into Ole Miss, a team that you should beat, you're favored on the road. And I'm not even just saying you should beat them because of that, but you should be able to beat that team, right? Like, I mean, you would agree with that?
Especially if you put up almost 50 points.
Yeah. Yes, for one. And also, if you just saw this offense go to Alabama and only put up 10 points, like there's a blueprint. People have been telling me all year about how bad Bama is. And you look at this LSU team, and it's like you at least have. I mean, there's an opportunity there, right? But the fact that Ole Miss came in, put up over 300 yards on like rushing and passing, 700 yards total, 55 points. They had 80 plays, Tyler, gave up 0 sacks. 0 sacks. Where is Mason Smith? Where is Harold Perkins? What is happening?
Well, Harold Perkins, that's a travesty what they've done to him this year in terms of where
Yeah, I
they're
don't
playing
get
him
it.
and the position that they have him. Like, the kid was an absolute playmaker rushing the ball last year, and you just neutered him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, you've got studs on that D-line. Look, LSU likes to consider themselves DBU, which, I mean, there's about 10 schools that probably do. This ain't it, man. Like, you took a kid from Ohio State, not your fault he got injured, but you took a kid from D2 who granted was an All-American there, but you took Denver Harris, who you get kicked out of a Jimbo Fisher program, you've done a lot wrong. And I'm not even saying that. I'm not even trying to, like, throw shade. Like, he gives
Yeah.
players chances, especially if they're good. So, you can't be super stunned when that doesn't work out. And I'm sure, they can recruit their way out of that through the high school ranks, but it ain't it right now, man. It's
No.
just and LSU fans gotta be really discouraged, especially because you're kind of wasting what has been a really, really good offense this year. Jaden Daniels, you've already made the point, has been fantastic. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't ask for more. Brian Thomas, like I asked at the beginning of the year, okay, we know about Malik Neighbors, but who else is going to step up on that offense? And Brian Thomas has really done that. I mean, that dude's a stud.
He's a
He's got
stud.
what, 6 or 7 touchdowns
He had
this year
3
already?
yesterday. I mean, he had 3 yesterday. I think now, and here's the thing. I see what you're saying about wasting the offense, okay? But the optimistic October part that I'm going to say, the one good thing if you're LSU, like you got to get back to work, like Brian Kelly was saying. There's still a ton of opportunity. Like you're not going to win the national championship, right? I don't think. I'll give you a brief glimpse of hope here. There's only one team that's won a national championship with 2 losses in the modern cultural era. I'm sure Bama did it like 7 times back in the 40s. I don't know. But like there's only one team in the modern era that's done it, and that's LSU. This year has been pretty crazy so far. Decent amount of upsets. Duke was in a dogfight with Notre Dame. Who knows what's going to happen because we're just now into October. So maybe all of these things happen because we haven't seen a cultural playoff without an SEC champion. We've barely seen any non-SEC like what's the best way to put it? Like we haven't seen hardly any national championships in the last 20 years. I feel like that didn't feature at least one SEC team. So
Mhm.
like you have that to stand on, and if they win the SEC, which they still can, you're not like completely out of the playoff picture, but you probably are, right? But you can still a lot of your goals, I don't think are like completely gone. Like you can still go in the West, you can still go beat Bama, all of those things. Maybe I don't know, but the offense and Jaden Daniels has been awesome. They've been awesome. I still like look at that game and like I look at like what I mean, Ole Miss is a really good team, especially at home. And Lane Kiffin, he was in his bag yesterday, and so was Jackson Dart. They just didn't make any mistakes. One of the things I said going into this game that was concerning for LSU was they ranked 11th or worse in explosive plays, basically in yards per attempt, in explosive plays over 20 plus yards, and in opponent rushing attempts over 10 plus yards. And you look at the combination of Quinshad Junkins and Ulysses S. Grant, whatever his name is, at running back, they had a combined 11 total rushes over 10 plus yards. They, as a team, they had over 20 plays that were 10 plus yards or more. They were phenomenal. I mean, they were phenomenal. I still thought LSU had a chance to win at the end. Switching over to that, like, let's give some credit to Ole Miss. Like, Jackson Dart played out of his mind. That's a team that we see a lot of stuff from Lane Kiffin that we're like, okay, Lane teams are going to be great on offense. They're going to be fun to watch. They've usually got a little bit of their coach's personality, and all that. We don't really associate having like a toughness, mental toughness, being able to come back when you're down. Like, we don't really see that from Lane. We definitely didn't see it a week ago. Down 2 scores in the fourth quarter with the option to roll over and die, and they came back and won. I mean, like, that was phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know that
Unreal.
it just disappeared again.
Your internal temp on your computer is too high. Switch out your computer again. I got you.
I'll
Okay.
just do this horrible angle.
We're on just firing all cylinders today.
We're on a Peter.
Yeah. What were your thoughts from the game?
From Ole Miss to LSU?
Yeah.
I just gave them.
I'm just saying, like moving forward. Like, moving forward, do you think like
No,
like,
I mean, I think
what-
LSU's in real trouble here this weekend
yeah.
against Missouri. When you're getting beat like that on defense, I mean, it's tough to have confidence, and that starts to wear on your offense. When you're like,
Yeah.
we have to score every time down the field because if we don't, we're gonna lose the game. You start to feel that game pressure as an offense, and I worry about what that's gonna do to LSU for the remainder of the year. And I
Yeah.
mean, they're gonna have to recruit their way out of this on the defensive side, probably look at a new coordinator for sure. Because to your point, it's 2 years running.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, I mean, again, I don't think they've wasted the year with like what they've done so far, but man, Jaden Daniels has over 2,000 total yards of offense so far and 20 touchdowns. And
Crazy.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, where do we want to go next?
I mean, we could finish out the SEC if we want and go at A&M Arkansas.
Okay. Let's keep it brief. There's some other big games on here we should talk about. All right. A&M Arkansas, a game I admittedly caught glimpses of, but nothing too crazy because there were so many other big games on.
Yeah,
Max Johnson, phenomenal in the first half. A&M really played a pretty well-rounded game. They scored in every phase of the game. Scored on offense, defense, and special teams, which is really, really impressive. Like I said, on script, they come out and they score on their first 2 drives for the 5th straight game. Only team in the SEC, maybe the country that's done that. Disruptive. I feel like they were pretty disruptive. There's a couple 3rd and 4th and shorts when you think that, a Sam Pittman coach team, still shocked that KJ Jefferson's in shotgun instead of under center in that situation. But
dude, if you're Arkansas and you have KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders, there's no way you should have 42 rush yards as a team.
That's insane.
174 total yards. I mean, I really like what A&M is doing on offense. I mean, he found something in Le'Veon Moss. I think, he's a good runner. And, Evan Stewart's obviously going to be your biggest playmaker, but I like Aeneas Smith. I mean, he's been around for a while, but they use him in a bunch of different ways. But I mean, Arkansas gives up 7 sacks, 15 tackles for loss for the second week in a row. The Texas A&M had that, but I mean, that's what Arkansas gives up. We were talking about it. Sam Pittman. How does Sam Pittman have this bad of an O-line?
We said going into this game, the thing that surprised me most going into it, and I thought the biggest matchup was going to be that defensive line. Will they live up to expectations finally? And then how bad this Arkansas offensive line's been, and 15 tackles for loss. The rushing yards is insane.
Yeah, just doesn't make a lot of sense. So A&M seems to be improving each week. Just perfect. Just what you want to hear, right? Going into that Bama game.
I'm so nervous.
Yeah, Harry Legee says A&M's D-line playing very well. Yeah, well, they should. I mean, they have all 5 stars, so they're finally finding their potential.
Yeah.
A&M may be one of those teams that under Max Johnson, I mean, of course, you'd still want to have Wegman, but he's an established veteran that isn't going to try to do too much,
Yeah.
Um, but with all the talent that A&M has, you don't really need a quarterback to do too much. Just don't turn the ball over, which they're still going to be something they need to do. Protect the football. But I mean, this was a domination in a rivalry game.
Yeah.
414 yards to 174. That's pure domination.
Here's something you guys need to hear about A&M real quick that I don't think everyone knows or remembers at this point in the season. One, this is not 2022 Texas A&M. They're not 5-7. Okay, they're actually only one win away from having 5 wins. Two, that loss they had earlier in the year, not only did it come against a currently undefeated team on the road, but it came against a non-conference opponent, which has no impact on your outcome in the SEC standings. So everything that A&M wants to do is directly in front of them with a massive, massive opportunity this Saturday. And I don't think people are talking about that nearly enough. I'll tell you one thing people are talking about way more than they should.
Texas Pete. Oh.
And Texas Pete. Colorado and USC.
Dude.
So Colorado.
I mean, I kind of feel like USC let their foot off the gas a little bit.
Okay, I don't.
No, just the way I felt. I mean, they were up. What was the score when Colorado? I mean, what was the score at halftime? 34-14.
34-14.
And then they scored another 14 points in the third quarter, and then it just stopped scoring. I don't know, because Colorado's defense is awful. I think they got a little bit unfocused, but
I think they got unfocused. I don't think they
opinion.
let the foot off the gas, though. I think, because here's the thing: Caleb Williams started playing hero ball for one. I mean, Marshawn Lloyd was running at will. You stopped doing that as much. Kept throwing the football. But that defense is so bad. That defense is so bad. I will say another one of my picks, which I felt like going into this game was like potentially the bet of the week, and I didn't put a lock of the week this week. But I thought that second half of Colorado over 10 points was going to make the most sense because I expect them to be down early, and then that offense is still really good. I think this is partially one of those things. We're doing the optimism thing. This can be one of the situations where two things can be true at the same time. And Colorado's offense is still really effective, and Shedeur Sanders is really good. Was actually a lot better with his legs this game than he's been all year.
Yeah, and they might have found something in true freshman Amari Miller, the
kid was awesome
receiver. I mean, 200 yard receiving.
He was awesome. And I mean, and he was doing it like it wasn't just go routes. It was like he made a one-handed catch on a deep 9 route or whatever, and then he also had a slip screen basically as his first catch of the season that he took for 65 yards. I mean, Cormani McClain finally got involved a little bit. Like they looked like they were really having fun in the second half, and I thought this is the first time I've watched Colorado, and I've been like, this is fun to watch. I knew it was going to be fun. The TCU game was really fun, but this was okay, now you're starting to see the personality come out in some of these players that are starting to finally get it. And I really, really enjoyed watching them this weekend. But looking at the other side of it, which is Southern Cal, and that's the side that is going to have a much more impactful and longer season, you would think, than Colorado. I don't even want to say the second year in a row. It seems like the umpteenth year in a row that Lincoln Riley has one of the best offenses in the country and probably the Heisman Trophy winner or leader, at least right now, at quarterback. And you're like, they're not just beatable, they're so beatable. They are so beatable. What is happening on that defense?
I don't know. It's not like they haven't recruited on that side of the ball. I mean, they've brought in high level transfers, they've brought in 5-star recruits, and dude, I don't know how Grinch. There's no way he goes into next year, right?
I mean, unless there's a marked improvement, but now you got to go into the tough part of your schedule, right?
Yeah, dude. I mean, we've talked about the Pac-12 all year. I mean, we know they play Oregon.
Yeah, they don't get Oregon State.
Utah, which
I think they get Utah.
Yeah. If Rising's not playing, Utah's quarterback is just not good.
Is Cam Rising the ugliest college football player you've ever seen? of significance?
I don't know. I was thinking today or yesterday when I was watching the Georgia game, Carson Beck's pretty ugly.
Yeah. Cam Rising Cam
So
Rising
we
is
man, this
shaped like
week on
the
the pod, should
opposite of
we
an hourglass, whatever that would be. And he is shaped like I'm not gonna say that. He's shaped like a rounded diamond. I'll say that. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm not impressed with South Ca- or with Southern Cal. I will say this: that Caleb Williams, as much as we've talked about some of these other players and the Heisman stuff like that, the Heisman, this is gonna be a fun year for the Heisman. You might get 10 guys invited. Like it is. There's
yeah.
so many deserving players as of today, and people will separate themselves, whatever. But it's been so much fun to watch the quarterback play from the Pac-12 specifically. Uh, but yeah, I mean, like he's been better statistically. He's been better this year than he has in the past. Here's what Southern Cal has coming up. Okay, listen to this. Oh God, there is no fucking chance. This is why, and I said this before the season. They were the third best team in the Pac-12, and right now, as of today, despite their record, where would you have them?
I mean, definitely out of the top 5. I'd probably say
No, in the Pac-12 alone.
oh, in the Pac-12 alone? Well, I'd have Washington, Oregon certainly over them. Maybe probably, Washington State, maybe not. I'd say 3rd in the Pac-12.
Okay, yeah, that's exactly what I said. Hold on, somebody's asking me how they can bet. Um, so yeah, I think that's probably fair. I think that's probably fair. Here's their schedule coming up. This week they get Arizona. Should be a dub. Then they go at Notre Dame, home against Utah.
That defense is legit too.
Yep, home against
Notre Dame's
Utah.
defense is good.
Uh, Washington on the road. I'm sorry. Home against Utah, at Cal, Washington at home, at Oregon, UCLA at home.
Mm.
They do not have a week off during any of that because they chose to play their last game of the year on November 18th.
What do you mean they chose that?
That's their schedule. They got a
So they
week
went bye at
off.
the end?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Going into the Pac
Okay.
12 championship. So I still see 2 losses on there.
You gotta get there.
Yeah, I don't think that they're going to. I just don't think they're that good. Okay, I'll tell you what. Another team in this
You know who
conference.
is good? Oh,
What?
I was gonna do a seamless transition to Texas, but this is good.
Damn it! All right, we got the week started off hot again. We've had
Yeah.
6 weeks of big picks energy.
Oh, this is one of my wins.
Yeah, this was your only win.
Not in Missouri. I get
Okay,
you.
so 2-8-1. This game in Corvallis, big win for Oregon State, 21-7. Drew Butler texted me like right before the game or a couple hours before, and he's like, "What do you got tonight?" And I was like, "Oregon State to score first because Utah's offense has been so bad. I like that." And then I would take Oregon State money line and the under. All 3 of them hit. Outside of patting myself on the back, I know how bad the play is for Utah's quarterbacks. I was blown away by how fundamentally sound Oregon State was and how well coached they were as a football team. They were awesome to watch. Awesome.
Yeah, man, they got a good squad, and it's kind of crazy that they just don't have a home next year.
That's like I hope they win the Pac-12.
But they didn't, and like DJU, he's about what he was at Clemson. I mean, maybe he's a little better.
No,
He's not great.
he wasn't what he was at Clemson.
Yeah, he's a little bit better. I don't think he's any like worlds better. Um, but you didn't need any offense really because
No,
Utah's offense is atrocious. Like they've got to get Rising back, or
have
it's.
to.
I mean, they got a really good defense, obviously, and I mean, the Oregon State only scored 21 points, which I would say in most Pac-12 games is not going to get you a win.
Yeah.
But apparently, when you're facing Utah's offense without Cam Rising, it is because my God,
They don't do anything on offense like where it's like you can rely on it. Like quarterbacks out. All right, well, because I kept saying there's no team built in the trenches outside of the SEC quite like Utah, right? And I guess what I should have said was it's really just on defense because on offense you can't run the football. They average 1.8 yards per carry. I mean, the quarterbacks were getting harassed all day. It was bad. I mean, it was bad. And
Bad.
Or-
Real bad.
Oregon State had 11 penalties, and this game was still never really even close. Like, even when they went down 14-0, it felt like it was like, how is Utah going to score 14 points? And the spoiler alert, they couldn't. I mean, dude, the week before, like at the end of the season, you're gonna look at this team, and Utah beating UCLA will be a feather in the cap for Utah. It will, because UCLA is a good team, but you played a true freshman quarterback at home, and the score was 14-0. Like, this offense is awful without Cam.
Yeah. I mean, okay, let's look at Utah's schedule coming up. So they've got Cal, which you would think you could win even if he doesn't play, and then you've got at USC. So get Cam Rising ready, because this is how they close the season. At USC versus Oregon versus Arizona State, at Washington, at Arizona, then versus Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
So if Rising's not there, dude, this could be a catastrophic end of the season for Utah.
Yeah, I hate it. All right, let's hurry up and let's talk a little bit about the yeah, we can talk about this.
I just want to talk. I mean, Texas is just out here playing elite football right now. Like, I think Texas is back. I think they've proven themselves this way. Now, this weekend, because Oklahoma looks really good too right now. This is gonna be a fun weekend. Like, this is gonna be a fun game this weekend coming up.
Yeah, Vegas has already just dicked me over immediately. You know what the spread is?
5.5.
Yep. This is like,
well, I'm going on this golf trip with some buddies, and we were like, so we're playing golf during the day. So we're like, what's the night slate look like? Because we want to all bet on one game. And someone threw out the slate, and it was like one of the games I saw. I was like half joking, but it was Fresno State at Wyoming. And I was like, we need to be all over Wyoming in that game, whatever the spread is. Came out today, 5.5.
Shit. Fresno State's good. No, I think Texas is playing elite football. I think that the thing for me in this game, right, is like, I don't want to say resiliency because it wasn't really close, but like in the beginning of it's 13-7 at the half, right? 13-7. At one point in the third quarter, it's 14-20. Because like Kansas, even though they have a backup quarterback, kept answering. There was a couple of fluky plays, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is what Texas did to Bama, and they did it even worse here. Like, you look at the second half points, right? They outscored Kansas in the second half 27-7. They outscored after Kansas pulled within 6. The rest of the game, Texas outscored them 20-0. I mean, that's what elite teams do. You put your foot on someone's fucking throat and you don't let up. And like that's what Steve Sarkisian and this team are doing. Quinn Ewers, 25 of 35 for 325 yards. Like, he's been awesome. Yeah. Awesome.
2 rushing touchdowns. You found something this year. You went into the season. You lost Bijan Robinson. And you have a true freshman, CJ Baxter. Everyone's like, this is going to be the guy. This kid, Jonathan Brooks, he's 3 straight games over 100 yards. In this game, he had over 200 yards on 20 carries, 2 touchdowns. You got A.D. Mitchell, who's playing really well, the Georgia transfer for Texas. Xavier Worthy, of course. And this team, Jatavian Sanders, this team is set up, man. This game for them this weekend is
huge.
It's going to be one of the more fun Red River rivalry shootouts.
Yeah.
That was tough.
I'm almost like nervous for both of these teams, but especially Texas, because I like Texas. But I don't even the feeling of excitement isn't what I have for this game. Like, I'm genuinely nervous for both these teams. Here's a good question. And I've asked this 2 weeks ago. People thought I was being a dick. What would the spread be of a neutral site game between Texas and Georgia? The spread, if Vegas was setting, it would be Georgia minus 3.5 to 4, guaranteed, because Georgia's the 2-time defending national champs. Texas would win that game today. Like,
oh, totally. I agree.
And here's the thing too. They wouldn't do this to
today.
Georgia. But like, you had going into this game, Kansas was one of the worst teams in the country with their pass defense. Quinn gets 325, right? He gets his numbers. Only 1 touchdown to the air, but he gets 325 yards passing. You still, knowing that, where you could have, with a Steve Sarkisian offense, thrown the ball all over the field effectively. Xavier Worthy almost had 100 yards. Like they didn't even get Jatavian Sanders involved, and they still put up 325 yards passing, 336 yards rushing. I mean, dude,
That's Kentucky
661 yards of offense.
level.
That is staggering, and the defense was good too. All right, we've been in an hour, so let's wrap it up with the. Do you want to talk about Duke Notre Dame real quick?
Yeah, man. So I thought it was a gutty performance or gutsy performance from Notre Dame.
Yeah,
Because we talked about it. Like I took Duke, and God, that the Vegas zone got me, dude. 5.5. They with Notre Dame going for 2 there at the end.
yeah.
That was tough.
Well, if they kicked the field goal, they still would have.
Yeah, but I was like, oh, they're going for 2. Oh my God, they could stop them. I could still win the
Mhm.
bet. And I was thinking too. It was like, okay, Estime, who's an absolute beast, their running back,
Yeah.
breaks through and scores with like what? There was like a minute left, right?
No, it was like 30 seconds.
And I was like, but still, when they were that close,
Yeah,
actually almost better because they can't milk the
yeah,
clock. You actually have some time. But you know what? Why it wasn't? Because, and I feel so bad, but like their quarterback gets rocked on the last play of the game. And like
yeah.
now Pete Thamel came out today and said it's not season ending and they'll
Thank God.
provide more on the timeline. But I felt awful because like if you're a Duke fan, you're going 30 seconds from beating Notre Dame at home and being undefeated college game day
Probably top
to
10.
losing the game and losing your star quarterback on the last play.
Yeah. I
What
mean, it
we
was
what
like
we all thought was maybe it was gonna be for the rest of the year. I was like, man, that is tough.
it's like
But
Laquan for Ole Miss and Auburn in 2014, but it obviously worked out better.
yeah. So, but I would say, look, I mean, a lot of people were on Duke. It was a live spot for Duke to make some noise. They had been crushing every opponent they've had, including Clemson.
Hmm.
Um, at home, Notre Dame coming off just a terrible loss, and man, like I thought the defense, like Notre Dame's defense is pretty legit. Probably shouldn't be surprised because Marcus Freeman was a defensive guy, but
Yeah,
you're muted.
I don't.
Okay.
No, I think Notre Dame's legit. Notre Dame's legit. Like
Yeah.
they're like you lost by 1 point, right, on the last play of the game to a really good Ohio State
Mhm.
team, and like I will say this about Notre Dame that no matter what at the end of the year, this is not going to be a situation where we look at Notre Dame and we're like, oh well, they haven't played anybody. They're going to get tested. They got USC in a couple weeks. That defense is really good. Sam Hartman was awesome from a leadership standpoint. Again, awesome. Awesome. I felt so bad for Duke. I felt so bad for Mike Elko because this is a fun story that everybody in football would like to get around. And usually you fucking hate Duke, right? Like nobody likes Duke basketball.
Yeah.
It's awful. Duke football was fun as shit. And Elko said it best. He said, like, we're not going to sit here and celebrate and make excuses or celebrate like moral victories. We're here to win football games, which I thought was a little bit of coach speak for sure. But the next point he made, which was, you're a 4th and 16 away from being undefeated. That was what was unbelievable. Sam Hartman's not known for his legs, and 4th and 16 they convert.
Dude, that play was incredible, man. Like he knew exactly where he had to be. And against Duke earlier this year, Clemson was in the same spot trying to get a big third down or 4th down conversion, and Klubnik slid too early.
Yeah.
And like Dabo was all over him, and it was like you got to know in that situation, and that's where you see Hartman's been playing for 10 years in the NCAA. So, but I mean, for real, like takes off and he just launches his body into like 3 Duke defenders. He's just like,
Yeah.
But had to have it, and it won him the game. And yeah, man, like that. I always hated Hartman just because he was on Wake and they would always beat us, and he would always just throw for 350 yards on us. But like, he's a good college quarterback at the very least.
Yeah, I agree. Those are the games from this week. Let's get into my new segment, and then we'll do our top 5 and we'll get out of here. Okay.
Okay.
My new segment. It's a second edition of the top 5 people I would like to replace Nick Saban when Saban retires. Okay.
No, I noticed you got some flack on this on Twitter for listing Saban's daughter like it was a clearly a joke.
Yeah, I'm gonna put her on there again. I might move her up. To be
Yeah.
honest, at number 1, I will still have Dan Lanning at number 1. I think he's got the best pedigree for it. I think he's been great. Okay, he's number 1. 2, still think Deion Sanders, because one thing, and these are for 2 different reasons. You would have a possibility, okay, a possibility of having like you're gonna have to have some sort of stopgap, and I think Dion's probably the stopgap. And then he goes to the NFL. I don't fucking know.
Can I interject real fast before you go to the next candidate?
Go ahead.
I'm definitely afraid that Florida's gonna like, I'm in this weird spot where I'm, like, kinda rooting for Florida to have, like, an okay season,
Yeah,
because if they just, like, go out there and are they're dumpster fire and they fire Napier, they're gonna hire Deion Sanders. It's gonna be the worst day of my life.
it's gonna be awful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
That's a legit fear that I have right now.
I can see that. So I would take those two. Okay. 3, Kalen DeBoer.
Yeah.
Kalen DeBoer. At number 4, not a lot of separation this week. Okay. Last week, I had my man at Kansas, Leah Pretty Lilad.
Lance Leopold, yep.
Yep. I'm moving up. Kristen Saban up to number 4. Because
Okay.
one thing,
Yeah, that's
and
fair.
listen, I'll put her with in a caveat of this. Miss Terry's with him. Now it might be tough for Miss
Okay.
Terry because but she's the reason why they lit a fire under their ass this week against Mississippi State. Saban even said it in the press conference. So again, Kristen Saban at
You gotta
4.
worry about nepotism, though, you know, they're like, with what's going on at Iowa, you gotta worry about that a little bit.
I'm a white male in America. Nepotism is kind of, I haven't even
That's what
thought
I'm saying.
about it. Barely even know what it means. Okay. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure that was one of the leaders in the French army in the 1800s. So congrats to Colonel Nepotism. And then I'll say and that was also just clearly a joke, guys. Clearly a joke. I'm still a liberal. White privilege thing was not my best move. And at number 5, we got a new person on the list. I'm gonna throw this out there just because, just to ruffle some feathers. Glenn Schumann.
Okay.
I don't have a reason to. Somebody threw his name out there and I forgot about him, honestly, but I'm going to throw him out there. You know what? Fuck it. I'm not going to put him on there. Take him back off. He's not ready to be a head coach. Mario Cristobal, because he can recruit. There you go.
Okay.
That's my top 5. Now let's get into our actual top 5 teams in America. Do you want to go first?
I will go first. All right, at number 5, I'm gonna put actually, I'm gonna put, Penn State.
Okay.
At number 4, I'm gonna go Florida State. At 3, I'm gonna go Georgia. 2,
Oh,
Washington. Number 1, Texas.
okay. My turn.
It's your turn.
Number 1, Texas.
Okay.
Number 2, Washington.
Okay. Same.
Yep. Number 3, Michigan.
Okay.
Looks better this week.
Yeah, they
Okay.
did.
Number 4. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. Number 4, I will say Ohio State.
Okay.
And number 5, I got Florida State.
I guess Georgia not in your top 5 right now.
No, Georgia's not. Listen, they will end the season in the college football playoff, and they will most likely play for a national championship because that schedule, they don't play anybody. But if you are being honest with yourself and you're looking at Georgia today, they're not a top 5 football team based off of their strength of schedule, which is, let me look at it real quick because I have it written down. Their strength of schedule, which is 91st in the country, right?
Mhm.
Like
0-5 against the spread.
0-5 against the spread.
Some might
Slow
consider
starts.
that not great.
Slow starts nonstop. You got all your starters back this week. Like I heard this all last year with Bama and Bryce Young. Where's the team without Bryce Young? Where is Georgia without Brock Bowers? Like they have so much depth at receiver, and the offensive line is great. The offensive line has been awful. Like the line play in general on both sides hasn't been great. The guard play at Georgia, fucking terrible, terrible. Like, and then you look at I think Carson Beck has been awesome, but where is this team without Brock Bowers? Luckily they have him, but that's not even a top 10 team without Brock Bowers. The way they've played so far and the rankings, my good friend Lillian got on me about this because I said a couple weeks ago, I was like, hey, I'm going to put Georgia at 1 until they get knocked off because they're the defending back-to-back champs and they deserve it and blah, blah. And I've obviously walked that back. But I will say, it's going into October. Strength of schedule has to matter. The strength of record has to matter. You played UT Martin. You played Ball State. You played South Carolina, who just got worked, right? And they were in the game against you. Like, look at South Carolina now. It's a 2-3 South Carolina team that has 2 losses by 17 plus points. None of them to Georgia. Neither of them to Georgia. I mean, they're not a top 5 team, so that's it. All right, tell everybody with all the things.
I love it. Okay, appreciate the show, guy, or listening to the show. Jeez, it's been a rough one today.
What's going on with you?
That's the end of the show. As always, we really appreciate you all listening to the show. Of course, it would really help us and the growth of the show if you would rate us 5 stars on Apple and Spotify. Leave us a review, like and subscribe to the YouTube page. Don't forget to leave us a message on game day. Sorry, this week the computer's just not wanting to do it, but we appreciate we had a bunch of callers and I wanted to play a bunch of these, but not going to happen this week. Will next week. Leave a message though, 770-674-8233. Don't forget to check out the videos and clips from the show. It is at Sat Down South on Twitter, at Saturday Down South on Instagram and TikTok, and on YouTube it's Saturday Down South. Chris, I'm Tyler. Thanks for listening. See you guys on Wednesday.